Good afternoon, Dracul, and thank you for tuning into the second question and answer session for the Prince position. This afternoon's event is brought to you by KBRN News and sponsored by various businesses within the Commonwealth. We're excited for this historic event as we'll provide you with the answers for learning more about our Prince candidates. The question and answer session will consist of yesterday as well as this afternoon's. Robert Fensome-Kemp will answer questions today, providing more insight. We'd like to ask that all members of the audience show respect to the candidates and that applause is saved for the end of the session. Please keep an open mind on all candidates, as both have their strengths that will be elaborated on in great detail. Without further ado, I present Robert Fensome-Kemp with Stephen Luke as the moderator.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to the Prince Candidate Q&A sessions. I'm your moderator, Stephen Luke. With us today, our Prince candidate, Robert Fensome-Kemp, to answer some questions to provide the community a better idea of who he is and how he plans, if he becomes Prince, to better Dracul and the community as a whole. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today, for joining us for this Q&A session. We're going to go ahead and begin at this time. And as previously mentioned, we like to ask that the audience please hold all applause to the end and to show respect to all candidates during our Q&A sessions. To start off, the questions pertaining to monarchies, the new introduction of the monarchy to Dracul. Given that Dracul is a new monarchy, what steps will you take to ensure a proper management of a monarchy while still upholding the values of a republic?
So in terms of a new monarchy, I think my first steps would be to appoint a royal household. That's the main component of good management. So people that can work with you to advise and also help make those decisions that ostensibly lead to greater decisions for the whole community. I think also in terms of how it would reflect in the new way Dracul will be managed is that you're ostensibly going from a republic to a sort of constitutional monarchy. So you have a head of state, which is the prince, but actually Dracul will keep its sense of identity and keep the roots of how it was founded, in terms of that, as a monarch, we wouldn't get involved with the republic side of things. So the government, it would be in the prince's name, but that'd be all. A republic is ruled by its representatives and the citizenship of its people. It's not ruled by the prince, and it should never be ruled by the prince. So it's making that fine divide between what is the role of the prince and what is the role of the republic. And as far as I'm concerned, if I was to become the Prince of Dracul, I would leave the body of governance as it stands, because that's the way it's always worked and that's the way it should continue to work. Pop a crown on my head and I'm a lovely figurehead that will be able to represent Dracul in a different light. So I think that would be kind of where I would sit with it. But like I say, good management comes from good advisors and a good household staff as well. So that would be one of the main priorities, to ensure that government and the prince and the republic all work together, sort of as a triangle.
Very well. Thank you for that answer. Since this is the first time Dracul will be represented by a monarch, how do you plan to be different as the first monarch compared to government officials?
So, like I've just said, my role will entirely be apart from the government. So I do have extensive experience as a government official. People will know that I was the Prime Minister of another micronation. I was the Chancellor of another kingdom. I've had those government official positions. So I have the experience of them. So I would like to think that I could give advice and also receive advice, but also as the monarch, keep well away from it all. That's one of the things that becomes paramount when dealing with a monarchy, is that if it's not an absolute monarchy, then the head of state, whether that's a king, queen, prince, whatever, should not be involved. They shouldn't air their opinions on government. They are there to work with the government, and they will back the government the full length of the way, regardless of what decisions are made by them.
Very well. Moving on to our other questions pertaining to the monarchies. Most micronations, as you well know, are monarchies. With this being said, how do you plan to be a strong and more efficient monarch than others in the community?
I'd like to think that I would be more of a presence than most monarchs. I do find that once the crown gets put on certain people's heads, they then disappear into the background. That won't be me. I also have the backing of other kingdoms already that would, help and advise me, rule in a way which means that I could achieve that.
Very well. And that is definitely something that many people do notice in monarchies. And I think it's a concern that a lot of individuals might have, especially upon receiving a new monarch, is will this monarch actually be around to actually fulfill their royal duties or not? Very good.
Yeah.
With Dracul being a nation, now we're focusing on historical purposes and ancestry. With Dracul being a nation based on Vlad Tepes and Romanian history, how will you as monarch improve upon the knowledge and history of our ancestors?
So I potentially don't think that Dracul does enough to educate people about that sort of thing at the moment. I don't see it myself, so I assume other people don't see it either. I think one of the points that I will make as part of my rulership would be to put that education in place. As a point of fact, that's where it's based, that's what it's based on. So, people need to understand that when they're coming in to Dracul, either as a visitor or a potential citizen or even an existing citizen, they should say, right, well, we are based on Vlad, we're based on Romanian culture and history. Where is it and where do we stand? Because at the moment, we're a monarchy in the middle of Texas with no Romanian roots. Whereas, that could be dealt with quite easily by myself and potentially others that join me within the household staff or advisors, and maybe get, some cultural administrators in place so that we can do that. I think there may also be, I know that Dracul really harnesses its power to bring groups together to do activities, such as the military academy that I was part of as well, as an instructor. So I've already given people a taste of what my instruction style is. if people follow me in my other kingdom, the Kingdom of Scone, where I regularly post about British history and community and monarchy, they will know that I will be able to do that with this one as well. I would also probably say that I've got closer connections. Where I live specifically has a large population of Romanians.
Very well.
So, we have got quite a lot. I was recently at a bar run by some Romanians, as it happens. It's a beautiful place and very charming people. And there's a lot of history where they're based. So I can take actual genuine inspiration for topics and facts that I would present.
Very well. And thank you for that answer. I think that definitely having connections like that would definitely help you out, especially with your physical geography. So I think that's definitely something that could go towards your success with accomplishing something along those lines, with strengthening the knowledge and history of Romanian history, along with Vlad Tepes history, of course, as well. Now, we're going to go on to another topic here. This topic is along the lines of conflict within micronations. Now, given that Dracul is mostly a peaceful nation, avoiding conflict and micronational warfare, how, as a monarch, will you handle arising conflicts in Dracul, outside of Dracul, towards Dracul, without sacrificing our image?
So this is one of the things that comes down to when being a monarch, you rely heavily on your government. I think we've all bashed micronational wars as a whole. They're not real. They don't exist in terms of, a physical conflict. There may be some irrational people out there that think there is, and there may be a case of people saying things to try and upset other nations through words. I mean, if nothing else, with enough generals in Dracul, as a peaceful nation, we've got a fully commissioned military there. But I think this is one of the things where, it would be down to the government to decide what actions should be taken. And if they want me to be the face of those actions, then that's when I would then back up the government's decision as monarch.
Thank you very much for that answer. Because conflict, it happens a lot in micronationalism to some degree or another, internally, externally, micronation to micronation, not necessarily, micronational warfare, but conflict between one and the other. We see it all the time. It's something that a lot of people might have questions about. God forbid a conflict with another micronation happen yet again, which it has unfortunately before in the past, but luckily has always been resolved peacefully at the end. Now, going back to the topic of monarch, as monarch, what can you bring to Dracul to better the community and strengthen its long-lasting professional image?
My experience, my knowledge, and I think it's safe to say I have the backing of people that already do the job. And they would be more than happy to provide their services to help me maintain a professional modern monarchy and a good image for Dracul. And I think it's basing those basing that sort of connections. That's what I meant to say. Forgot words. Me speak English. Uh, so it's all about using those connections that you already have, and I have quite a few in the monarchy side of micronationalism, or miniature kingdoms, as some people call them. And I can use those connections to make myself the true monarch that Dracul needs.
And our last question for this afternoon, along the lines of strengthening and bringing new things, what do you plan to bring to Dracul along the lines of new ideas that the greater community isn't used to or hasn't seen before?
So what I would do to bring new ideas would be to look at what is already there as a basis, build on that, and then basically introduce things to Dracul that aren't there at the moment. It's a brand new concept for Dracul. They haven't had a monarch before. They haven't had monarchy. So they don't really know what to expect except for what they've seen looking in on other micronations, other monarchies. What they've seen from, the television, things like that. I will be a true life figure within the community that will put a face to a monarchy that they've never had before. So first, straight away, every idea will be new. And like I said, I can base my knowledge around the roots, the history of what it was built on, and provide something that isn't seen out there. There isn't another micronation like Dracul. And then when you add the concept of a monarchy on top of that, it means that, we can make something that was never there before, has never been seen before, and just make a better Dracul.
Very good. I do believe that there will be a lot of positivity should you be elected by the people. I think there are a lot of things that you bring to Dracul, certainly. I think that the community would definitely have an interest in you, be willing to give you a shot. And we'll see when it comes to election day, of course, as you face your opponent, the incumbent Vice Chancellor, Connor Modena. Of course, after he provides his Q&A session, we will then move on probably the next week or two, an actual live debate between the two of you, where that will be the actual competition between the two of you. So I'd like to thank you again for your time, for answering our 7 questions. I think the community has learned a lot about you, especially those who haven't met you. And we'd like to thank our viewers for participating in the Q&A session today. This is Stephen Luke, the moderator for the Prince Candidate Q&A session. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Good night.